But don't think that decision to recognize Israel is an easy one. I had to make a compromise with the Arabs and divide Palestine.
You tell us specifically that a lot of Jewish people were against you, too?
Oh, well, there were a lot of Jewish people against me because they wanted the whole of Palestine. As I say, they wanted to drive all the Arabs into the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. Floyd Anderson was one of them. We had several other people in the country, even among the Jews, the Zionists particularly, who were against anything that was to be done if they couldn't have the whole of Palestine and everything handed to them on a silver plate so they wouldn't have to do anything. It couldn't be done. We had to take it in small doses. You can't move 5 or 6 million people out of a country and fill it up with 5 or 6 million more and expect both sets of them to be pleased. We had all sorts of objections to everything that was done. Something had to be done. We went ahead and done it and had it done, and now it's working out. Eventually, I think we'll have them all satisfied. But it's going to take a great deal of time yet to get the job done.
But there's no doubt that within the occupied territories, Palestinian land, that there is a horrendous example of apartheid. The occupation of Palestinian land, the confiscation of that land that doesn't belong to Israel, the building of settlements on it, the colonization of that land, and then the connection of those isolated but multiple settlements, more than 200 of them, with each other by highways on which Palestinians can't travel, and quite often where Palestinians cannot even cross. So the persecution of the Palestinians now under the occupied territories is under the occupation forces is one of the worst examples of human rights deprivation that I know. And what is being done to the Palestinians now is horrendous in their own territory by the occupying powers, which is Israel. They've taken away all the basic human rights of the Palestinians, as was done in South Africa against the blacks. And I make it very plain in this book that the apartheid is not based on racism, as it was in South Africa, but it's based on the desire of a minority of Israelis to acquire land that belongs to the Palestinians and to retain that land, and then to exclude the Palestinians from their own property and subjugate them so that they can't arouse and demonstrate their disapproval of being robbed of their own property. That's what's happening in the West Bank. And the people in this country, in America, never know about this. They never discuss this. There's no debate about it. There's no criticism of Israel in this country. And in Israel, there is an intense debate about the issues in this book. In this country, no.
I agree. I mean, I wish we had that sort of debate that they're having in Israel. I wish we had that in the United States. But give us a sort of sense, how much of the responsibility for the conflict, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, do you think belongs to the Israelis for their tactics like seizing land and occupying territory that didn't belong to them? How much of it is the responsibility of the Palestinians for their suicide terror attacks and their bombings within Israel proper?
Well, as a matter of fact, the basic cause of the conflict is a sustained occupation of other people's land by the Israelis. And this is a direct violation of United Nations resolutions. It's a direct violation of the International Quartet's roadmap. It's a direct violation of the commitments that leaders of Israel have made in the past at Camp David when I was president and in Oslo, promising that Israel would withdraw from occupied territories. They have failed to do so. In response to that, and I'm not excusing them, there have been acts of violence. As a matter of fact, though, for instance, Menachem Begin, who I think was a hero at Camp David, but Begin had been what the world considered to be a terrorist. He was the head of an organization called Irgun, right, and they had deliberately set off a bomb in the King David Hotel that killed 96 innocent people who were just guests in the hotel.
And put yourself in their shoes. Look at the world through their eyes. It is not fair that a Palestinian child cannot grow up in a state of their own. Living their entire lives with the presence of a foreign army that controls the movements, not just of those young people, but their parents, their grandparents, every single day. Just as Israelis built a state in their homeland, Palestinians have a right to be a free people in their own land.
Here's my concern. The U.S., the Obama administration says it will veto a UN Security Council resolution to establish a Palestinian state. That could trigger a lot of anti-American reaction in the Muslim world, in the Arab world, elsewhere. How concerned are you that that could trigger that kind of development?
Oh, a little bit. I think
Just a little bit?
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. But in the street, it's more of a concern than among the leaders for this reason. There is a widespread feeling in the world that the current Israeli government may have abandoned the intention of working with the Palestinians to create a state on the West Bank and Gaza and just doesn't want to say it.
You believe that?
I'm not in government. I don't know enough to know. I'm just telling you what I hear around here. That this Palestinian government in the West Bank under President Abbas and Mr. Fayyad is the best government the Israelis have ever worked with, which the Netanyahu government will say. They're good on security. They're good on economic growth. They're good on self-reliance. They're just good. But they still don't want to negotiate borders and security for a Palestinian state. And they're spending a fortune to expand settlements in the West Bank and apparently now want to train militia. On the other hand, they claim that they want to continue to negotiate for a state. As long as that's possible, the United States, being the only country that Israel really does trust to be there for it under all conditions, will veto this resolution to keep the debate going, to keep open the possibility of peace. But it is a very difficult thing. The other countries understand this. But you know, everything Israel always said it wanted, they wanted their Arab neighbors to accept them. Now you've got the King of Saudi Arabia mobilizing every Arab country except Syria and Muslim countries as far away as Indonesia saying, give the Palestinians their state and we'll have a political, economic, and security partnership. No progress. Nothing happened. So it's an extremely difficult time. And what I'm more worried about is not somebody taking action against us. I think what we need to do is as soon as this is over, as soon as the Palestinians have had their say and said we did everything we were asking, this has not happened. And so they asked for this. And then we'll veto it. What we have to do is to move immediately to contain the fallout, not so much for the United States, but for the people in the Middle East.
First thing you have to ask, do they both want to make it? I have a real question as to whether or not both sides wants to make it. I have a real question as to one side in particular, whether or not they want to make it. Well, I don't want to say that right now. I think one side actually would like a deal, and I think the other one maybe doesn't want a deal, to be honest. I don't want to say it. No. Look, in my opinion, if Israel wants to make a deal, I think a deal could be made. I think it will be made at some point.
And I firmly believe that the actions that Israel's government has taken over the past several years, the steady and systematic expansion of settlements, the legalization of outposts, land seizures, they're moving us, and more importantly, they're moving Israel in the wrong direction. They're moving us toward a one-state reality, and that reality is dangerous.